It's time to plug into a brighter future and focus on energy. What's up, Wisconsin? Discover practical solutions, expert insights, and real-world success stories that will save you money at home and work. Here's your host, Ron Jordan.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to What's Up, Wisconsin. I'm Ron Jordan, your host and the PR and media manager for Focus on Energy. Today's episode is all about your home, not the curb appeal, not the fancy kitchen countertops, but what's really going on behind the walls, under the floors, and in your attic. And we're talking about a deep dive into home energy efficiency with something called a professional in-home energy assessment. Joining me today is Andy Kuc, a Focus on Energy program manager, one of our trusted experts here at Focus on Energy, and someone who knows exactly what's going on inside your home, even if you don't. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you, Ron.
So let's start right at the top. What exactly is a professional in-home energy assessment?
As the name states, Ron, it's a professional assessment of the energy efficiency of your home. But when you're assessing energy efficiency, you're also assessing home comfort, durability, and safety. You can't have one without the other.
So start from the beginning here. Like someone's walking around the house. That's a window. So how is this, science?
Sure. The energy assessors that actually conduct the assessment are third-party building science professionals, and they have to have an accreditation in order to participate and focus on energy and conduct these energy assessments. So they have to go through a very complicated and strict training to get that certification in order to participate. About 16 years ago, I went through that training and had to get that accreditation. Ron, I could tell you, it was so intense. I'd rather stick needles in my eyes. That again, it's hard.
What do you like when you're learning to do what? What are you being accredited for?
Sure. So you're learning about the science of buildings. And basically what that means, it's physics. And it's about how air, heat, and moisture move through the building.
Okay.
An area to the next, which leads to home comfort. And also, obviously, it influences one's energy bills.
So sometimes we talk a lot about where you're supposed to start. Air leaks and insulation, so air sealing and insulation is what we like to say. So how much of an impact then are we talking?
It's big. You get confused with all the propaganda that's out there, window manufacturers wanting to sell you windows, solar manufacturers wanting to sell you solar products, but it's about the building, and air tightness is arguably the most influential component of a home's energy efficiency.
So meaning when you were in class and you're taking your accreditation, and so they come and say to you, all right, so you have to seal the entire house and you have to have insulation in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying someone comes to your house then, this building performance professional,
Mm-hmm.
They come in and what do they do then to determine if air is leaking out?
So the first thing they're doing are get the physical parameters of the building, going to measure everything so we can determine the surface area and the volume of the space. Those are going to be important to be able to put into the energy model. And that will be the first thing that they do. One of the very important tests that's conducted is the measurement of the air tightness of the home is called a blower door test. And the way that works, there's a fan. It looks like a barn fan. And there's a big fan that's in a shroud. And that shroud and the fan get applied to the main entrance of the building. And then that fan is turned on and is going to pull air out of the home. It's going to depressurize the house into a prescribed level. And then we can measure, using the gauges that are associated with the blower door, how much air is leaking out of the house. And then we know specifically a number of the air leakage is. And that number will get plugged into the energy model.
And I do want to say that we will have a link to a video that shows how this works and all of that. And it is a walkthrough with a building performance professional. So I do want to say that right now.
Okay.
So the test tells you, okay, things are leaking out. How do you then find where the leaks are coming from?
Right. There's air is invisible. You can't see it. So what's conducted as part of that blower door test is a infrared camera scan So the assessor will walk through the home with the infrared camera and look at specific areas. And then the camera has different colors. So if you see blue, that's air leak. That's an area of air leakage. And some of these, like, there's natural air leakage in a home. You can't make a home 100% airtight. That's not possible. You wouldn't want to do that anyway.
And you also don't want to, and maybe you want to explain why. Sure. So you don't want to be 100% airtight.
Well, it'd be kind of hard to breathe. And when you get to a certain level of airtightness, moisture becomes an issue. And, part of that assessment that the assessor is going to do, we're going to determine that airtightness level and talk about ways to fix it. When you make a home more airtight, ventilation becomes more important. And the program has specific recommendations for mechanical ventilation to solve the problems of a more airtight home. We've been doing this for 25 years, Ron, in the program. There's not much we haven't seen in terms of things that cause a building to fail. We know what those are, and we know what to do with how to address them at the beginning, at the onset, as part of that assessment.
So you mentioned the energy model. There's like a modeling program. So let's say, you go through this process to become certified. How much math do you have to know? Because if there's a model, you're talking calculus or stuff here.
Well, I just tell you, that was one of the things that made me want to stick needles in my eyes, because I figured that there was going to be a lot of math, and I'm not a mathlete. So the software program takes care of that. So the assessor's plugging in the information, like it's mentioned, the volume of the space, the surface area, and many other things are entered into the software, and the software does all the math magic.
Now, see that I'm pushing here for some more building professionals to go and start to do this work, because we need them out there. So they run these tests through your home, and then what happens when they're done with the assessment? They go through the bathrooms, they go through everything.
Yeah.
And what do they
give to you? Thorough examination of the entire home. So no matter the time of year, they got to go up into the attic. They've got to measure the attic insulation, and just kind of give you an example of some of the things that you see in a home. My experience is mostly leaning towards the new home industry. And just using a new home as an example, when the assessor's doing that blower door test and using the IR camera, they would be able to see the insulation through the wall, and sometimes, believe it or not, there's no insulation in the attic. It was just forgotten for whatever reason. Someone was sick, someone forgot, scheduling error.
in a new home?
In a new home.
You've seen this happen?
Yes. It happens about once a year.
Oh my gosh.
So the assessor has to measure it, so they got to go up into the attic, and if they can't see it with the IR camera, they'll see with their eyes that there isn't any.
Right.
And there's only one way to know that, and that's through an assessment. You can't know otherwise.
Right.
You just can't know. You don't know what your home needs unless you're testing. If you're not testing, you're guessing. And you could be wasting a lot of money when you guess.
So Focus on Energy does have an online home assessment, which is pretty basic. You put in the numbers of your home size and all of that, and it tells you what you might be able to do and you can do. But this assessment, the one done by a person who comes in your home, truly is the best way to do this.
Without question, if it's money well spent, because without a complete assessment, the only way to know the status of your home is to have it tested. If you're not testing, you're guessing, and you could be guessing wrong.
So after the building performance consultant was done, the homeowners get what?
The homeowner get a report based on the software. The assessor is going to enter all the characteristics of the building into the software. And the software is pretty robust. We can do a variety of reports from the software. So we can look at the biggest consumers of energy in the building, and we can rank them in hierarchy. So you can see where the energy is being lost. And then a conversation with the assessor, okay, what do we do about it? and they can guide you, the homeowner, through the options of fixing the things that need to be fixed based on the homeowner's value system.
And so, some examples then, if we're already talking about established homes, so we're talking possibly, HVAC, changing ducts, new furnaces. What are all the options here?
So we talk about air tightness and insulation. Those are the big things, and those probably would be the most important. But you want to look at the HVAC system, the heating and air conditioning system, the water heating system, to some degree, windows. But the building shell is what you want to take care of first. That's where you're going to get the biggest benefit in terms of energy efficiency and comfort.
And, Andy, you mentioned the building shell. A lot of people, they, want to immediately just jump into solar panels, or they're talking heat pumps and all of that. And there's a reason we talk about the structure of the home first.
Yes.
And you just said it.
Yes. If you're not testing, you're guessing. And do you really want to do that? The only way to know is with an assessment. And you can decide within a family's own value system what's the most important to them. It's up to the homeowner what they want to do, but you won't know what to do unless you have an assessment.
And it's not like you have to do everything right away that's on that assessment.
No, like I said, whatever works in your value system. So why do you want to tackle the biggest thing first? Maybe that doesn't make sense for you, so you tack some of the other things that are on the list that you can afford at that time. And it's totally up to the homeowner. They have complete flexibility on what they want to address and how they want to address it. But now you have the fact sheet sitting right in front of you with the information for you to make an informed decision.
And so now we get to talk about the benefit of the Focus on Energy Trade Ally, doing the assessment and moving from there. Tell us about it.
So the assessor can work with a Focus on Energy Trade Ally. So maybe it's an HVAC contractor, or maybe it's an air sealer or insulator. And those folks have to be registered with Focus on Energy. They have to go through a training as well. So we know that they are performing at a level that is expected through the program. Those trade allies will be the ones doing the actual installation of the products. And the assessor is just providing them with the reports and the information. So they're basically a team.
So everything costs money.
It does.
Let's talk about that for a second. What is the average cost?
So the assessment can run $500 to $700 approximately. As I mentioned, the assessors are independent business folks. So the program doesn't have any influence on what that is, just what the market's going to determine that. A bigger home that's more architecturally complex is probably going to cost more because, measuring those spaces that need to be measured and the size of the home require more effort.
So, what is the first step? If someone is interested, they're listening to this right now and they say, okay, what is the first step?
First step is to go to the Focus on Energy website. You'll see a landing page there for a program called the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as everything related to Focus on Energy. We could talk about the Inflation Reduction Act here in a minute. But the website will guide you to find a energy advisor or an assessor. If you want to go through the assessor or directly with an assessor, you can go ahead and do that. If you want the help of an energy advisor that's associated with Focus on Energy, you can do that too. So the energy advisor is going to guide you. They're going to be your custodian through the whole process, and they'll provide you with the answers to the questions that you need. If you're not certain in the direction to go, your energy advisor would be able to help guide you.
And you just mentioned the energy advisor being with you the whole time. So, and it's really important that we mention this. Like, you talk about that because people think, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. So the energy advisors are also trained and accredited to science abilities. They have to have the same accreditation as the assessors. So as I mentioned, we've got 25 years of experience in buildings here in Wisconsin. For the new homes program, it's over 50,000. For the existing home program, it's probably double that.
Right.
So we have all that experience to bring to bear to address any homeowner's needs. And, we can talk about some other stories of some things that you find in a home. And again, if you don't have an assessment, you will never know, and you could be making a bad decision without that guidance.
And you did mention the IRA program, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, which is from the federal government. And when it comes to assessments, actually you can have the federal government does give tax credits for assessments. Is that correct?
Correct. So there's money available for the assessor to do the assessment to help offset that cost to the customer, which is a big help. For the Inflation Reduction Act, the incentives are income based. So the lower the income, the higher the incentives that are available for folks. And that program also is leaning more towards electrification.
That is correct. And you can find all that information as well on focusonenergy.com.
Yeah, you can't miss it. I mean, it's on the website. It's right there in front of you. And you just click on the big giant yellow box regarding the Inflation Reduction Act.
So once they find the energy advisor and they come in and they're with you the whole time, helping you then really just decide what incentives to go for. And then what about the paperwork and all that? Because there's got to be paperwork that's involved.
Yes, but the way the program is structured is the assessor will take care, an energy advisor would take care of a majority of that paperwork. There's a little bit of paperwork that needs to be done by the homeowner, but it's not onerous.
I did want to point that out because when you work with a trade ally, a contractor with Focus on Energy, they're going to handle all of this paperwork for you. You do not have to. There are options to do it yourself, but you do not have to do it yourself.
It's one of those things people don't like very much. I'm one of them. Doing a lot of paperwork is not my thing.
And I do want to point out, there are several incentives that you can get if you do it yourself. They're on the website, focusonenergy.com. There are incentives, though, that will require a professional assessment of your home.
Correct. So for insulation and air sealing, you would have to have an assessment, because otherwise you'd be wasting your money trying to do it without a blower door test.
So
might be wasting your money.
Before we wrap up, I love a story of something bizarre found, and also any myths that you want to bust about these energy assessments.
Sure. We'll start with busting the myth of an energy assessment. And we've been stressing throughout the conversation, if you're not testing, you're guessing. Some people think that an energy assessment's not needed. That can't be farther from the truth. There's only one way to know, and that's to have an assessment by a qualified professional that can provide you with the information for you to make an informed decision. Otherwise, you're guessing.
Awesome. All right. Tell us the strangest story of something, something that was found that maybe because an assessment wasn't done, or you tell me.
Yeah, there's some of them that are kind of funny, but not appropriate for this.
Okay. Well then, yeah, let's avoid those.
So, we just talked about the attic insulation. This story goes back when I was doing assessments when I first started, and we're in the basement talking with the homeowner, conducting our test. By the way, there's another test that I probably should mention, and then combustion safety.
Okay, go ahead.
So as part of the assessment, there's a combustion safety test. It's testing the combustion appliances. A combustion appliance is basically a furnace or a water heater that's using a fuel, propane or natural gas, to burn a flame to heat the air or the water. And those things need to be ventilated properly. Sometimes they're not. We can test for spillage. So, for example, if you turn the ventilation fan on in your kitchen, it's depressurizing the house. If it's installed properly, tested to work, it's exhausting air from the house. So it's pulling air out of the house while, for example, your water heater is trying to pull air out of the house, and competing against one another. So you flip the ventilation fan on, and it causes that water heater to backdraft, meaning the pollutants that are supposed to go through the vent
Okay.
coming into the home.
Oh.
And we can test for that as part of the process. We also can test for gas leakage.
Wow. Okay. All right.
We test the ventilation too, because ventilation is one of those other things, Ron, that are common even in new construction, where that ventilation device, when you flip the switch on, you hear the fan run. You don't know if it's moving any air at all.
Right.
And we can test for that. And that's a bigger problem in existing homes. It's pretty pervasive.
I feel like I need to get an energy assessment in the house. Now that you talk about flipping those fans on, and I'm wondering about some stuff.
Well, you can do the toilet paper test. You can flip the fan out and people put a piece of toilet paper in one sheet and to see if it pulls up into the fan. There's some depressurization, but it might not be adequate to remove the moisture that's in the building. Everything in life, Ron, has its consequences. When you make a home more airtight, there are consequences. As I mentioned, with our experience, we know what those are. In mechanical ventilation that's installed properly and tested to ensure that it works is really important in a more airtight home. Otherwise, you could end up with some moisture problems.
Andy, thank you for all of this. Is there anything that I missed that you want to add to this and let people know before? Because really, this is the first step. Truly, is figuring this stuff out, and it helps that we have people here at Focus on Energy that can help you figure this out.
Yeah, it's most people don't realize that 1.2% of their energy bill goes into fund Focus on Energy. So as long as you've had a home, you had an energy bill, at least for the past 25 years, you've been paying into the system. And that's the whole point for our existence, is to provide a resource for homeowners to be able to improve the efficiency of their home, knock their energy bill down. And we provide incentives for that. Based on an evaluation, there's a 4.6%, I think it varies every year, but about a 4.5% return on that investment in terms of energy savings to the ratepayers of the Wisconsinite.
We just came out with a report from 2024, and it was for every dollar that we bring in, it's a little more than $4 returned back to Wisconsin, to the economy. So
that's not bad.
It's not a bad investment at all. And so, Andy, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Very much for coming. And if you are interested in anything energy efficiency, if you want to do your assessment of your home, visit focusonenergy.com. Everything is right there on the homepage. Schedule your home assessment today. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast and join us next time. Until then, stay efficient, Wisconsin.
What's Up, Wisconsin is produced by Focus on Energy, your energy efficiency and renewable energy program. Focus on Energy partners with Wisconsin's utilities, providing residents and businesses solutions, lowering your energy cost, saving you money. Focus on Energy turns every dollar invested into more than $4 for Wisconsin and its economy. Visit focusonenergy.com and start your energy efficiency journey today.